So guys, recently I've been seeing a lot of this topic kind of around everywhere, and it's all about basically how the wellness bubble is kind of bursting. So I guess you both know what I mean by like the wellness bubble, right? So we're talking about the trend of super healthy eating, crazy ingredients, croissants made out of activated charcoal, turmeric lattes, all those kind of things as well. And how actually, even though after the last couple of years there's been a massive boom of people trying this kind of stuff, it's starting to kind of, I guess, show its darker side as well. So, yeah, it started off with, I read this article in the New York Times called Smash the Wellness Industry. And basically this journalist was kind of talking about how, yeah, the wellness industry, the restrictive diets, the kind of very expensive practitioners that people want to work with, how really it's all just kind of a lot of rubbish and it doesn't really contribute to people's health on a grand level. And I also listened to a really interesting discussion on the High Low podcast by the authors of a new book called Is Butter a Carb?, which is, again, all about smashing the diet culture and wellness industry. And those ladies in particular were talking about how a lot of this wellness stuff plugs the gaps where otherwise support has not been there. So, for example, people start trying out different diets if they feel like their doctor isn't looking after them well enough, or you might go to a type of healer, or you might decide you want to do more yoga or lose 15 pounds or whatever it is as a result of feeling otherwise unsatisfied in your life. And just generally I'm noticing on like Instagram and stuff at the moment there's a lot of discussion about how wellness, diet culture and all that kind of stuff is actually bad for people's mental health despite the kind of package that it's wrapped up in. So, thoughts and feelings about that?
When you said it this morning, I was honestly like, thank God. Like, I can't wait for the bubble to burst. I think it is so overwhelming living in our day and age now. I think you're told on a daily basis you have to meditate every single day, you have to have a balanced diet, you have to get 8 hours sleep, but do yoga every morning before 4, you have to wear certain clothes, you have to look a certain way. It's so overwhelming, and I think we obviously work in the mental health industry, so we're kind of attuned to what's good and what's not good, especially for ourselves. We've got quite good self-awareness, but I think for a lot of people, and maybe I cast my mind back to how I was like 4 years ago when I was really struggling and didn't have good self-awareness, and I was struggling with depression, anxiety, and I didn't know where to turn. I was so susceptible to any kind of like health thing that could make me better. Any practitioner that was online that was like, I can fix you, I was like, that's the cure for me. And I sunk thousands of pounds into things that didn't help me at all. And I ordered like magic pills offline that fix your depression, which obviously don't do anything.
Are you talking like herbal kind of stuff?
Yeah. But I mean, it could have been other stuff. It could be dangerous. So you don't know how deep into the rabbit hole you go. So I think I cannot wait for it to burst. I just think it's not good for people. Like, people don't know where to turn for help.
It's almost like an abundance of like over-information, right? It seems like it's almost too much out there.
Yeah, and I completely agree with what you said, George, about basically them targeting people who are in like really a vulnerable position, and they're probably at such a point of desperation where they will try anything. They, might not be at the therapy stage yet, so they'll look at things and be like, maybe if I do improve sort of my body image, that will change things for me. If I do eat healthier, that's going to make a huge difference. When really, like, those things might make minor changes, but it's not going to be like a quick fix. And I feel like a lot of companies that are in sort of that industry and are promoting these sort of products, they are saying, if you do this, your life will be completely better, all your problems will go away, and it's just completely false. And in all honesty, I just think it's completely mis-selling the product itself as well.
Yeah, and I think there's a balance, right? Because oh my God, like hearing what you said, George, I have tried literally every wellness hippie woo-woo practice under the sun, and you guys are laughing because you've definitely heard me come in with like, I'm trying this new like coffee made out of mushrooms and stuff like that, and obviously like I'm really into my exercise and stuff like that as well. So yeah, I do think there is a place for it to be supportive to people's lives, but I think the issue is coming where it's a drain on people's finances because wellness is expensive. Like these herbs and adaptogens that you can put in smoothies and stuff like that, which are meant to give you better mental clarity. Magnesium's meant to be good for anxiety, and then B12 is linked to your like depression levels and all this kind of stuff. You can just go down such a rabbit hole and sink so much money into it. And that's the point where I think it starts to become problematic, where actually your life just becomes so absorbed in like optimizing the way you feel. And it's all of this wellness stuff is kind of pitched around ways that like you can control it as an individual, which is kind of what we spoke about earlier in the team meeting, right? Because it's like, okay, what can I do? As you just said there, you know, like how can I make a small change and, you know, maybe start doing more yoga? How can I like buy the right things on like Amazon or whatever? When actually quite often, you know, if you're in a vulnerable place or your mental health is, you know, a bit on the lower end of the spectrum, it's kind of like a combination of much wider things in your life, which you're not going to solve through adding more turmeric to your diet or, you know, getting up that bit earlier. It might, you know, take the edge off, but really those kind of things come up after, a more systemic issue in your life. Do you guys agree?
I think it's easier to go and buy like a turmeric coffee and think, oh, this is what's missing from my life and that's what I need and I'll feel better, then rather than actually just taking a step back and looking at what's really going on in your life, the real kind of underlying issues and working on that stuff needs to be worked on. But I think we can get into this dangerous habit of not doing the work we actually need to do and work on the parts of our life that we need to, and instead just, you know, buying all these different types of pills and vitamins and coffees and exercise DVDs or whatever just to cover up what's really going on.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree as well. And just touching on the financial sort of financial
element of it.
Element. It's completely true. It's so many companies are sort of offering like you said, turmeric lattes that will be, you know, a ridiculous amount considering you could go down to the shop and just buy turmeric from anywhere really if you desperately wanted to get. And especially something that sort of makes me a bit angry about the whole industry is that there are so many studies and so many reports that show being in a like unstable financial position or having like financial pressure really damages your mental health and really affects you. And these companies are sort of feeding on that and actually making it worse. And therefore the person actually never sort of gets out of that dark place they're in. It's almost like those products are keeping them in that dark place, but they're under the illusion that they will eventually get out of this place through the help of like these lattes and like Himalayan pink salt and stuff like that, like superfoods. And it's just not going to completely change what you're going through and what you're experiencing at that time.
Yeah, and I think it's like anything, you know, often I've certainly felt like and I know this to be true, that when I've been in a really vulnerable place, like you said, George, like I've really reached for this kind of stuff and it's felt almost like there's a bit of hope and a bit of promise in it, which when you think about it, and you're like, that's what these companies are kind of betting on, right? It's like vulnerable people looking for a simple answer to like a complex problem. But yeah, I've definitely sunk like way too much money like into this kind of stuff as well. And I guess the other thing that bothers me about it as well is the fact of like how much like time it consumes in your life. Like these aren't things that are like easily accessible unless you've got a lot of money, right? So quite often it's, you know, it's just adding more and more and more to your already probably overloaded brain if you live like a busy, hectic life like most of us do. So actually it's like, how much of my headspace has been taken up thinking about how I'm going to eat right, how I'm going to get enough exercise, how am I going to get these new herbs into my diet or something, or how can I optimize my health and fitness levels even more? Like the amount of headspace that's taken up from me, I'm like, God, what other stuff could I have been thinking about? Could I have been, I don't know, thinking about my job more, my relationships more and stuff. Like it actually just sinks so much of your time as well.
And I think to kind of touch on the first point you both made as well is that the companies kind of make you believe that you need to optimize your life in order to be the best version of yourself or to be the perfect human being. So you get into this horrible habit like we all have of being anxious or insecure in our own ways of our body doesn't look quite right or we're not doing enough exercise, therefore we are not the best George Bell we could be. And then you kind of beat yourself up when you don't have enough of these special coffees or crystals or whatever. And I think that's what's really dangerous now is that people feel they always need to strive to do more to be the right version of themselves.
And that's so true. And I think on that point as well, it's stopping people from being in touch with what they really need. Like we always say with coaching, right? Our coaches aren't here to give you the answers. The whole model of coaching is you know exactly what is best for you. I'm just the person here to kind of draw it out and help you get there on your own and hold space for it. And I think what a lot of this stuff does as well is it stops you from being able to tune in to what you really need and what's good for you, you know, and how do you actually feel, because you're constantly chasing another feeling. Do you get what I mean? Does that make sense? Like it stops you from turning inward and, you know, understanding, oh, I'm a bit low energy today. maybe I need more sleep, rather than, well, I haven't had my 2 magnesium pills, my mushroom coffee, and my handful of kale, and, you know, I've only eaten green things today, so I should have more colours to my diet. Like, it constantly makes it seem like the answer is out there, and yeah, you're just one product away from feeling this super optimized version of yourself that all these things promise. So I guess, yeah, because I don't think you need to demonize the whole wellness industry. Like, I think it's great that people want to eat more vegetables. You know, people are thinking more about, I guess, kind of spirituality with it, or how they feel like in their body. But I think the problem is when it's like that's the only solution to feeling good. And yeah, I mean, there's been the argument out there as well that really, like, wellness is just a diet. It's, if you look at it in the same way that people make promises about going ketogenic or doing Atkins or Weight Watchers or whatever, it's always like, follow these steps and you'll live this amazing life. And that's kind of what wellness is in some sense as well. Just it happens to be wrapped up in this bow of, but this is really good for you, and this is about your overall well-being as well. Yeah, so it's kind of crafty.
Yeah, I think it's about finding or asking yourself why you're doing a thing. Like, if you're getting into spirituality because it's something you are really passionate about, then that's cool. But if you're doing it to fill a hole in your life, or to escape from something you don't want to work on, or because you've got all these adverts telling you have to do it, then it might not be the healthy thing to do. And I think we've kind of realised this recently in our sort of tone and message at Sanctus, where maybe when we first got into the mental health industry, we were kind of like, here's the way you need to be to live a good, mentally healthy life, and you need to meditate, and you need to do this, you need to talk, you need to whatever. I think actually recently we've realised that you don't need to do those things if you don't want to. What you need to do is what is good for you. And if that means that actually you want to smoke 10 cigarettes a day and that makes you feel good, then do it. You don't need to listen to the posters out there that ask you, are you Beachbody ready? And you won't be if you keep smoking. So yeah, I think we've said recently, like, I know James says it a lot, like, if you want to go and have the McDonald's breakfast, like, have it. Don't anyone shame you for that.
Exactly. Yeah, I think certainly what we're learning, and, you know, kind of as the team like grows internally within Sanctus, and we get like different types of people coming in, you know, we're not all the same, and yet we've all got our own ways of like looking after our mental health. And yeah, I think in that way, exactly what you've said, George, like, there's room for everyone, and there's room for each person to kind of know individually with them, like, what helps. Like, obviously there's some objective truths, like smoking is bad for you, but also, you know, like, if you have a cheeky cigarette every now and again, or if you're going through a really stressful time and that's what's supporting you and helping you get through the day, or if you're trying to, you know, learn how to manage your anxiety or something, and at the moment cigs are the only tool you've got, like, who cares? Great, that's better than not doing anything. That's better than, like, you know, just sitting with this horrible, uncomfortable feeling if you're not yet ready. So yeah, to then kind of have this like one version of it where it's like, you know, well, if you're just like supremely healthy, all your problems will be fixed. It's just so not true as well. So yeah, I mean, I don't think every crystal shop or like smoothie bar in Shoreditch needs to like be shut down and put the borders up in the window. But yeah, I do hope that by like this conversation starting, that people just start to question a little more what the wellness industry is offering, and yeah, just learn to, I guess, tune in with themselves again. And, you know, just when they're in the queue at Pret, what's going to satisfy me now? Is it the matcha latte that kind of tastes like grass, or is it actually, you know, my favourite coconut flat white kind of thing? Like, just those small little changes.
It's like, it's so hard to sometimes go internal and like figure that out. Like, for me, the perfect example is meditation. Like, there's overwhelming reports and stats and studies out there that show that meditation is really good for you. It increases your life expectancy, your happiness, your memory, your mood, all this stuff. But I don't like meditating. But I always feel pressured to do it because a lot of people on the team do it, and I read all these things. So I've gone through so many periods of trying to meditate, and I just don't like it, and I can't do it. And then actually what happens is I get really stressed and a bit down because I can't keep up with the 10 minutes a day. So I just feel shit. And then the whole point of meditation is to feel better about yourself. But actually, I end up feeling crap. So
the opposite effect on you by the sounds of it.
It's been really stressful. And then it took like, I tried like 7 different like blocks in my life to do it. And in the end, I was like, do you know what? I don't like meditating. I made a commitment to not do it anymore. And then I felt good for it. But that's against kind of the wave that the wellness industry is telling you that you need to meditate in order to be, you know, the best CEOs meditate every day or whatever.
Yeah, and that's the thing, there's so many shoulds around wellness, right? It's like, oh, I should be, you know, eating this huge array of fruit and vegetables, you know, I should be exercising like 150 hours a week, I should be getting, I should be getting my 10 steps a day. I meant to say minutes, not I was like, wait, that's wrong. No, 150 minutes a week, or you know, I should be getting my like 10,000 steps and stuff like that. But yeah, when there's so many of these things, it's like these things are all recommendations, and it's like, oh my god, please find me one human being who does all this stuff
Exactly.
and is actually happy.
Yeah.
Because I can guarantee that if you made a commitment to do all that stuff, which I'm like, oh, maybe this is another Sanctus challenge. We try and tick all the wellness things up in 1 week or something, and see what it actually feels like. Because you know, I can imagine like, God, unless you didn't have a lot to do, that'd take up your whole life.
Exactly.
Trying to tick all that stuff off.
I think that is, obviously there are many dangers within the wellness industry, but I think that is another big one as well for the people that don't really resonate with the products. And, you know, if the turmeric latte doesn't benefit them, or like you said, George, if meditation doesn't benefit you, there tends to be sort of this connotation of guilt with it, where it's just like, oh, I've failed, I'm not a good person because I can't meditate and because I don't enjoy turmeric lattes and they don't turn things around for me. Yeah, like I know I've personally harbored a lot of guilt. I really struggled to meditate as well, and I used to think for ages, I was like, something wrong with me, maybe, you know, there's a disorder I have that I'm not aware of. And it got to the point where I actually thought that there was some type of mental disorder that I really needed to work on, where it's just a case that I'm just like, my brain enjoys being busy, I struggled to switch off, and therefore meditation just doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
But I wish I had known that, rather than sitting on it and feeling so guilty about it for so long and pushing myself to do it again and again, when it clearly was actually causing like more harm than good.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the thing, right? Anything that's supposed to promote well-being should be about, in my opinion, being kind to yourself. So it's actually, you know, although it's perhaps not the intention behind these messages, just the sheer volume of it, it's hard not to feel guilty or like you should be doing more, or that you've kind of like, you're missing something that everyone else is understanding, especially when, you know, everywhere you look, particularly on like social media, there's like influencers or your favorite, I don't know, like person in business or whatever is like touting the benefits of it. So actually, yeah, it's kind of difficult not to cut yourself a bit of a break and just be like, look, like I can't do all this stuff. Like I can take a few things out of this that work for me. And, you know, as I said, I really don't think the whole wellness industry, you know, needs to do one. Like, I actually think there is some benefit in it. And I quite like being introduced to new ideas and new practices. But, yeah, in the past, I certainly just, like, absorbed all of it without having any kind of, like, I don't know, questioning of it. To be like, does this really work for me? Like, oh my God, at one point I was doing like a celery juice thing. That is probably my most, like, that is my like peak of like the wellness thing as well. Because yeah, I remember at the time I had, my skin was really, really bad. And like I'd seen on like some Instagram influencer who I loved was like touting the benefits of it. And it was like, if you drink it every morning, on an empty stomach, it's meant to have these amazing benefits. And then, you know, you go deeper into the rabbit hole and you see like before and after pictures of people doing it for like 6 weeks. And yeah, I just completely swallowed it. And I was like, I'll give it a go. I'm up like a lunatic. I was like literally 6:30 in the morning, like juicing celery, like going to buy like bags of celery from Tesco's. Like,
tried to get me on it.
I actually was so embarrassed even talking about this, because I'm just like, not gonna lie, guys, I consider myself to be a relatively intelligent person. I'm like, how did I get so into this? Like, it's complete bollocks. And also like all of that stuff that you see where it's like before and after pictures, you've got no information on the other stuff that person was up to. Like, their skin could be totally different to mine. Like, mine was partially like hormonal. It was to do with the stress I was under at the moment. I live in a polluted like city as well. There was 101 different like environmental factors that were contributing to the state of my health and at that time my skin. But I'd seen this one like promise online, and it seemed like such an easy solution. It was, oh my God, is that the missing ingredient? Do I just have to like juice this celery every morning and my skin's gonna clear up? And of course it didn't work, and I just couldn't be asked in the end, and I gave up and stopped doing it. So
and also, I mean, this is probably like another discussion, but you touched on something else there of like influencer marketing, where like the person that you saw advertising it may not have even tried it.
No,
they've been paid to do it, and you're like, and then because you're in a slightly vulnerable place and you see someone you respect, you immediately get lapped up into it, and half the time they probably haven't even tried these things.
No, and that's the other thing as well, right? In the wellness industry, there are so many influencers who are, you know, clean eating, even though that's kind of going out of fashion now, you know, or are sort of wellness, lifestyle, like holistic bloggers is kind of the things I've seen. And, you know, you have to remind yourself, like, these people, very few of them have qualifications, very few of them are dietitians or nutritionists. You know, even if they are, unless they've actually kind of given you a personal diagnosis, you can't really take a one size fits all like kind of advice. So yeah, I think you've touched on a really good point, because the social media industry is not regulated at all when it comes to wellness, and you're just seeing people's lifestyles, and every body is different. Everybody's lifestyles are different as well. So even if you do see these people online who you really admire, trying to apply their lifestyle and their eating, diet, exercise, spiritual practice, whatever it is, trying to then sort of just like copy and paste that into your own life, it's like it's not relevant. Like, it's not going to work. It's two totally different things. So I think it's just getting harder and harder to stay in touch with like what you really want, and to kind of keep that separation between, okay, I'm interested in what this person's doing, maybe I'll try it, versus like, oh, I've just got to completely adopt this. And
I think especially, I'm not the best place to speak on this, but especially probably as like a young kid or like a teenager who, where there's like, studies are out now saying that anxiety rates amongst teenagers has risen, and they put it down to a lot of it down to social media and the fact they're on it a lot more. So you can imagine you've got, I don't know, a 12-year-old girl who's really, really anxious, and all they want to be now when they're that age is an Instagrammer or a YouTuber or a blogger or whatever. So those are now their idols, and they're already racked with anxiety, and they see all their idols talk about their celery juice diet or whatever, and then that's all they're doing when they're that age as well. So I mean, obviously I don't know exactly what it's like, but I'd love to kind of know what the younger generation are doing around wellness and how kind of sucks into it they're getting.
Yeah, it's definitely a problem.
Yeah, I think that would be really interesting. I think when I was younger, there definitely wasn't this sort of, well, there was the wellness industry, but it just hadn't exploded at that point. But I still remember seeing so many things, and I thought to myself, if I don't do something to look a certain way, or do something to be a certain way, act a certain way, put certain things in my body, I'm never going to achieve sort of that status in life that I want to achieve. And I would look up to so many people who really didn't have healthy lifestyles, would smoke because it would suppress your appetite and things like that. And I would hold on to that so much and believe that that's what I had to do. And if I didn't do that, I wouldn't achieve anything in life, and it would just mean nothing.
Yeah. And isn't it true though as well? Because we're kind of from the generation where it was like, models like smoked and drank black coffee. Whereas like now I feel like every like Victoria's Secret model seems like she gets up at 5 a.m. and goes for a 15-mile swim and then drinks like a green juice and a shot of wheatgrass with her chihuahua living on the beach, and then she meditates for 15 minutes and stuff like that as well. So even if we think about that, right, culturally, I mean, like, that was never sold as wellness, smoking cigs and drinking Diet Coke for a living. But what was like, I guess, kind of like a prestigious lifestyle, potentially, if you look at it this way, like smoking, drinking, partying, drugs and that kind of stuff, that was a lifestyle that suggested wealth, good connections, kind of like, I don't know, being in a certain like social group and stuff like that. Whereas now actually wellness is the thing where it's like, well, if you can afford these really expensive like superfood powders, it suggests like prestige and like status in society, and that's always going to be shifting. So obviously we're never going to achieve peak wellness or any kind of get any closer to that idea of it, because it's constantly just shifting throughout the time as well. So I think in 10 years time, like, it'll be totally different again, and we'll look back and be like, oh my god, do you remember when everyone was like buying superfood powders off of Amazon? Do you remember when people were drinking green smoothies all the time? Like, oh god, how lame. Right, I'm gonna go get Diet Coke now. Yeah. I hope the next shift is towards like being intuitive and in touch with really what works for you, and with that caring for your health and like how you feel, but also knowing, god, sometimes just like eating that Krispy Kreme is like the best thing for me.
Yeah, because you just said peak wellness, like doesn't exist.
What does that mean?
What does that mean? Complete mental health. Like, it's not a race that you win or like a one-time battle. Like, it's just an ongoing thing, and it doesn't matter how many smoothies you buy, you're not going to kind of go up a level. I think the biggest thing I've taken away from like my own journey is just like find what works for you, and you can't do any more than that. I think I relate to what you were saying about kind of feeling guilt for not meditating, and I was the same. Like, when I was depressed, I got more depressed because I couldn't meditate. I was like, I'm not going to get better. I'm not going to complete the meditation, so I'm going to be forever depressed. And I think now I'm just like, I can't believe I used to think like that. I wish someone, like one of us now, could tap me on the back from 4 years ago and be like, mate, you don't need to meditate.
I'd be like, George, that's the least of your problems, mate, at the moment. Like, don't worry about the meditation thing. Focus on what does work for you and carry on being nice to yourself because you're going through a hard time.
Exactly, like, and I think we even think these things now, and I'm not so vulnerable. I even think, I haven't gone for a run, so I feel a bit shit. So back then I felt 10 times worse. So I just think that's the biggest thing that I take with me now, is just like, do what works for you, and don't let anyone else, like friends, family, whatever, tell you otherwise. And obviously listen to what they say, and there might be something in it, but often people are projecting their own kind of desires onto you or whatever. So just, if something works for you, then just stick to it and fuck what the gurus say.
My kind of final thoughts on it are, like I have definitely tried every single like wellness trend out there. Like I dare you to name one that I haven't like given a go at some point or another. And yeah, it's only been really recently, to be honest, that I've actually just been like, I am going to just like drop all these rules and restrictions and try and tune back into what works for me. And yeah, funnily enough, meditation does really work for me. But, you know, have I done it for the last couple of days? No, because I've preferred the lay-in kind of thing. And yeah, even with like healthy eating and stuff like that, I've let a lot of the rules that I'd made up go because they were making my life so much harder. And actually what I'm kind of left with is a real truer sense of like, oh yeah, I feel a bit more in touch with how I am today, or I'm not beating myself up for missing out the 10 vitamins I used to take a day and stuff like that. So yeah, I hope that the next trend we see in wellness, and if the bubble does burst, is that it's bringing people back in touch with like what they really want and what works for them. And maybe they know a little bit more about health. That'd be cool too.
I love that.
Yeah.
Let's find a massive pin and just burst the bloody bubble.
Yeah,
let's do it.
What do you reckon, Pops?
Yeah, I completely just echo what you've both said. Yeah, I don't really know if I've got anything to add on to that. But I think one of the biggest things that I've learned through sort of my journey with like wellness and mental health, exactly what you said, Vic. Just do what I want. I try and not make promises to myself like 3 days in advance. I'm like, you know what, if I wake up on Friday and I don't want to go to the gym, I'm not going to go to the gym. Or if I want to have a McDonald's breakfast, I'm not going to harbour guilt about that, rather than not having like a green smoothie, which is something I would used to feel so bad about, choosing like bad food choices. I've just learned like to do what makes me happy, and this is the happiest I've ever been. But it's probably also, I guess, what the wellness community would see as like the unhealthiest I've ever been, because I'm not following all of those fads and trends. But it's just, yeah, it's really worked for me. So
there you have it. McDonald's breakfast is good for your mental health.
Exactly.
Yeah.
McDonald's anyone?
Yeah, all right. That's good. 6 nuggets, please.
Nice.
20.